Have you ever wondered where a truly terrifying story comes from? What if I told you that some of the most bone-chilling horror legends are not just works of fiction but are deeply rooted in real-life tragedies? From haunted houses to creature features, the line between fact and folklore is often blurry, creating a type of horror that stays with you long after the story ends. Today, we're going to peel back the layers of fiction to uncover the disturbing truths that inspired some of the most iconic horror stories of all time. Let's start with a house that has become a cornerstone of American horror, the Amityville house. The legend we all know is about the Lutz family, who moved into their dream home only to flee in terror just 28 days later, tormented by supernatural forces. But the horror of 112 Ocean Avenue didn't begin with the Lutzes, it started with a real horrific crime. In November 1974, Ronald DeFeo Jr.B. murdered his entire family, his parents and four younger siblings in that very house. This brutal act of violence laid a grim foundation for everything that followed. When George and Kathy Lutz bought the house a year later, they claimed to experience terrifying paranormal events, strange odors, cold spots, swarms of FLIs, and even demonic apparitions. Their story, documented in Jay Anson's 1977 book The Amityville Horror, became an instant sensation. The public was completely fascinated. It was the perfect storm, a real grisly murder mystery combined with a classic haunted house tale. This blend of true crime and the supernatural created a narrative so compelling that it spawned a massive media franchise, with over 30 films exploring the legend. But the Amityville story also highlights a fascinating aspect of horror, the debate it sparks. From the very beginning, there was intense skepticism. People questioned the Lutz's claims, pointing to their financial struggles as a possible motive. The idea that they might have fabricated or exaggerated their experiences for a lucrative book and movie deal has been a persistent theory. In fact, a lawyer who worked with the family later claimed they concocted the story over a bottle of wine, aiming for financial gain. This controversy doesn't diminish the story's power. It adds another layer. It forces us to question what we believe, blurring the lines between a genuine haunting and a masterful hoax. Whether real or fabricated, the Amityville Horror perfectly captured the anxieties of its time, fears about financial instability and the vulnerability of the American dream. Its legacy is undeniable, popularizing the haunted house genre and proving how a real tragedy can be transformed into an enduring cultural myth. Now let's go from a haunted house to the open ocean. For many, the ultimate seaside terror is a shark attack, thanks in large part to one movie, Jaws. But the story of a great white shark terrorizing a summer beach town wasn't just a brilliant idea from author Peter Benchley. It was inspired by a string of real, terrifying events that happened in New Jersey back in 1916. Over a shocking 2-week period, a series of shark attacks along the Jersey shore resulted in 4 deaths. At the time, this was completely unprecedented. Scientists were baffled and initially doubted that a single shark could be responsible. The public reaction was pure panic. The fear that gripped the coastline was immense. This led to massive shark hunts as people tried to eliminate the unseen predator lurking in the water. These events marked a turning point in public perception. Before 1916, sharks weren't widely seen as a major threat to humans, but this series of attacks created a new, primal fear of the ocean's depths. The incident also birthed a new sport, shark fishing for recreation, as brave fishermen set out to catch these powerful creatures. When Benchley's novel and later Spielberg's film adapted this history, they tapped into that pre-existing, deep-seated fear. Jaws became a cultural phenomenon precisely because its horror felt so plausible, so terrifyingly real. It's a powerful example of how a localized historical tragedy can evolve into a universal nightmare. These stories show us that some of the most effective horror doesn't just come from imagination. It comes from history, but what about the monsters themselves? Many legendary creatures have their roots in real people and events. Think about the iconic villains of slasher films, like Norman Bates from Psycho or Leatherface from the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Both of these characters were heavily inspired by the same real-life figure, Ed Gein. Gein was a Wisconsin man whose crimes were discovered in 1957. What authorities found in his isolated farmhouse was the stuff of nightmares. Gein had been robbing graves and had murdered at least 2 women. He used the human remains he collected to create household items, bowls made from skulls, chairs upholstered with human skin, and a lampshade made from a human face. The sheer depravity of his actions was beyond what most people could even imagine. He wasn't a monster from a myth. He was a real person. When news of Gein's crimes broke, it sent shockwaves across the country. He became the real-life boogeyman, a testament to the darkness that can exist in quiet, unassuming places. It's no wonder that horror creators were drawn to his story. Robert Bloch, the author of the novel Psycho, lived just a few miles from Gein and was fascinated by the idea of a seemingly normal man leading a monstrous secret life. This duality became the core of Norman Bates. Similarly, the creators of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre drew on the gruesome details of Gein's House of Horrors to create the cannibalistic family and their macabre home decor. Ed Gein's legacy in horror is a chilling reminder that sometimes the most terrifying monsters are human, but horror myths aren't always about modern crimes. Some go back to ancient times, evolving and changing with each generation. Take the story of Bloody Mary, the ghostly figure that people try to summon by chanting her name in a mirror. This urban legend is directly tied to a historical figure, Queen Mary I of England. Her reign in the 16th century was marked by religious persecution. A devout Catholic, she was responsible for the execution of hundreds of Protestants, burning them at the stake for heresy. This earned her the nickname Bloody Mary. Her life was also filled with personal tragedy, including several false pregnancies that left her childless and heartbroken. Over the centuries, the historical facts of her brutal reign and personal anguish twisted and transformed. The real queen, known for shedding the blood of her subjects, morphed into a blood-soaked ghost trapped in a mirror. The mirror itself is a powerful symbol in folklore, often seen as a gateway to the spirit world. The legend plays on our deepest fears: fear of the dark, fear of the supernatural, and the fear of what we might summon. The story of Bloody Mary is a perfect example of how historical trauma combined with folklore motifs can create a ghost story that remains terrifying hundreds of years later. Let's travel even further back, to ancient Greece, and explore the origins of another monstrous figure, Lamia. In Greek mythology, Lamia was once a beautiful queen of Libya, loved by the god Zeus. But this divine favor brought her nothing but pain. Zeus's wife, the jealous goddess Hera, discovered the affair and took a terrible revenge. Hera killed all of Lamia's children, driving the queen mad with grief. In her despair, Lamia transformed into a monstrous, child-devouring demon. Some versions of the myth even say Hera cursed her with the inability to close her eyes, so she would forever be forced to see the image of her dead children. Lamia's story is a profound tragedy about loss and vengeance. She becomes a predator, hunting the children of others to try and soothe her own unbearable pain. In some tales, she also seduces young men and drinks their blood, making her one of the earliest prototypes of the vampire myth. Her evolution from a beautiful queen to a terrifying monster is a powerful exploration of how grief can corrupt and destroy. The myth of Lamia shows how ancient cultures used storytelling to grapple with complex emotions and the often cruel nature of fate. Her story has echoed through time, influencing countless other tales of vampiric, predatory women. So, from haunted houses built on murder scenes to movie monsters inspired by real-life killers and ancient queens twisted by grief, it's clear that horror is deeply connected to our reality. These stories do more than just scare us. They act as a kind of cultural memory, preserving tales of historical tragedy, injustice, and societal fear. Ghost stories, in particular, often give a voice to the marginalized or forgotten. They can be alternate histories, telling the stories of those who were silenced in official records. They force us to confront uncomfortable truths about the past and reflect on unresolved trauma that continues to haunt the present. These tales challenge us, they fascinate us, and they terrify us, all because they have a foothold in the real world. The knowledge that this could happen or this did happen is what makes the horror truly resonate. It taps into our collective anxieties and our deepest fears about what lies just beneath the surface of our seemingly normal world. The next time you watch a horror movie or hear a ghost story, remember to look a little closer. You might just find a chilling piece of history looking back at you. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the roots of horror, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more content. Let me know in the comments which real-life horror story fascinates you the most. Stay curious and maybe sleep with a light on tonight.